Next button, next. Thank you. I'm very aware that I'm the thing standing between you and drinks, so I will super try and keep this on time. If your date of birth doesn't appear up here, I'm really sorry, but maybe pay slightly more attention. Can you raise your hand if you were born in between 80 and 90? So you're the start of the millennial generation. And it's kind of 80, 81, depending on how you kind of justify it. And you will remember technology like those adolescent growing pains. You were actually born in between the advent of the Walkman and Google, so quite a lot happened in that time. You'll remember the mini disc player, your Game Boy, kicking your brother off of the landline so that you could, use the internet. Now raise your hand if you were born after 1990, and there will be a scary amount of people, I'm hoping, because in my company there are a scary amount of people. Okay, slightly less scary. You're millennials, but you're what Mark Prensky, an education consultant from the US, calls digital natives. And there's quite a big difference here. You grew up probably with your first phone being a smartphone. Your first music service was probably not burning CDs. It was probably Apple Music, possibly Spotify. Apparently, you've played 5,000 hours of video games. You sent 250,000 emails, 10,000 hours on the phone, and 3,500 hours online before you even reached the age of 21. So I'm not encouraging people here to multitask while I'm talking, but if you could think of or jot down where exactly you would like Fidelity to be in 10 years' time and where you would like your own career to be in 10 years' time. So what does this all mean? Well, there's a quote. And they're talking about digital natives here. Young people have been marketed to since they were babies in today's day and age. They have developed this incredibly sophisticated bullshit detector. And the only way to circumvent that bullshit detector is to not bullshit them. Now, some of the younger people in this room might know who this man is. His name is Shane Smith, and he's the founder of a media company called Vice, a multi-billion-dollar media company that tries to take content and deliver it in a different way using different platforms to young people of today. And what is the point of all of this? Well, Bauer Media, they're talking about customers here, but actually it's very relevant to culture in companies. Bauer Media did a survey of millennials, and they found that 71% of those people said, I would rather tell somebody about an experience that I have rather than something that I have got. And we are really living in this age of millennials and digital natives want to experience life. They don't want to own things anymore. So what does that mean in work? Well, this is a Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, Dow Jones collaboration of a survey. And what it said about these digital natives and millennials is 74% of them want flexibility at work. 88% of them believe in collaboration over competition. 40% of them believe that blogging publicly about issues in the workplace is acceptable. 15% of them are already managers. 70% of them have added a friend or a boss on Facebook. 80% of them believe in on-the-spot feedback, positive or negatively, over a more structured performance management process. And 69% of them wonder whether the idea of an office is really necessary today. And then they have these kind of quotes being written about them. And that's kind of really hard. You're lazy, you're narcissistic, you're entitled, you don't know how easy you have it. But actually, if you think about the changes that have taken place in this generation, top talent is literally getting emails from LinkedIn in their inbox offering them new jobs. It doesn't sort of really matter what survey you read. They all think that they're expected to produce more in a shorter amount of time, and there's a different pressure. The idea of an office isn't sort of really an office anymore. We have 24/7 access to emails. We can do video conferencing while we're kind of wearing a shirt from the top and pajamas at the bottom at 8 o'clock on a Friday morning. We've all done it. And it has created this kind of culture that is causing a tension between the more senior and junior members of big businesses especially. And what we have is we have these digital native tribes. I'm going to bust a little myth for you here. This idea of young people not being loyal isn't actually true. So, little fact check, in 2015, millennials took over as the largest percentage of the workforce globally. So if you're not a millennial, I'm afraid I'm sorry, and it's only going to get worse. But it also kind of highlighted another thing, that these people are job hoppers. It's actually not true. If you look at the beginning of the career of Generation X workers, more of them stayed in a job for less than a year than millennials are doing. A little bit of a bad rep going on. So what does this mean? Well, it means a few things. The first one is values, and we've heard this afternoon from a few of the other speakers. It has never been more acceptable to be yourself in the world. You want to get tattoos? I've got tattoos, and I have to go and advise FTSE 100 companies, and they're on my wrists where you can see them. You want to shave your head, you want to talk about your sexuality, you want to bring your sexuality to work. That is okay now, and that is absolutely fantastic. But how is it that you as a big corporation can expect these people with really strong values to come and leave those values at the door and walk over here and adopt these corporate values which they don't necessarily agree with? It's hard. And 50% of millennials say that they would take a pay cut for a job that more closely aligns with their values. So this is a big deal to these guys. And it means behavior is suddenly so much more important. And this is kind of the main point. Deloitte did a survey, and 21% of respondents thought that actually their current employer was making what they called good use or full use of their skill set. So they think that their companies aren't behaving in a way that make full use of their skills. And PwC found this quite interesting. So in 2013, when they had about 80% of their workforce was millennials, because lots of young people go into consulting, they went and they surveyed them all 180,000 of them at the time, not just the millennials, all of them. And they got 44,000 responses. So that's pretty extraordinary statistical significance. And what they found were three things. Firstly, millennials are less willing to accept this idea of an irrational work-life balance. They want a job that behaves in a way that fits with their values. And as we've just found out, they're willing to take a pay cut for it. People want flexibility at work. True, but actually, by the way, so do non-millennials. I think the world has just changed a little bit. If you're going to give me a smartphone and expect me to sleep with it under my pillow, let me kind of be a little bit more flexible about the way I work. And then the other thing is actually the reasons for people leaving jobs, millennials and non-millennials at PwC, the top 5 reasons were actually the same. It was the weighting of the reasons that were different. And for millennials, the number one reason why people left work is that they don't feel that they were being supported or adequately kind of given opportunities for growth in the workplace. Impact, going to bust another myth for you here. This idea that all millennials want to make a positive impact at work. 25%, according to the Wall Street Journal and Fast Company. Baby boomers, 22%. Generation X, 23%. So actually, it's kind of not moved a huge amount. So if it's not about the impact, then what is it about? Well, it's about the delivery. For the younger people in this room, kind of nothing feels worse than a boss telling you that your idea doesn't matter because you're green and you're brand new. And actually what is happening in the workplace is it's about the delivery of that culture from everybody in companies, but especially the managers, not even the senior management, because sometimes they're too far away, the middle management. It's the delivery of that. And what we're talking about now is this evolution away from IQ towards EQ. So these young digital natives have grown up being able to essentially get all of the information that they could possibly want within a few minutes on Google. So they might get called lazy and narcissistic, but actually they think they're just being effective. And they're going, I can get everything that I need. What I need now is the skills and the behavior and the delivery of the culture to be able to do something about that. So what do I mean by EQ? I mean the ability to negotiate, the ability to manage teams, the ability to manage clients, the ability to manage critical decisions with this huge wealth of information in a way that has the desired business outcome. So you're one of the bosses here or online. You're not a digital native. What does it mean for you? Well, I'm sorry, it's not your culture anymore. It's their culture. They're the majority of the workforce around the world. They are your future leaders. You have to work with them to understand what it is that they need to be retained in your company. And this TEDx today is a really perfect example of that, actually. It's so lovely. Because you're doing something. You have put the power in the younger generation of the people at this company, and you have asked them what they've wanted, and you have instilled the behavior in them to go and do it, and you have delivered the output. And that is very powerful for these digital natives. You have to understand what incentivizes and stimulates these younger generations. And we see all of these wonderful things in Silicon Valley about free lunch or whatever. Jeans, free lunch, work at home on Fridays, drinks, whatever it is. Go and find out what makes these people feel like coming to work as a second home, because that is really important to them. and then help them grow. And this is quite a big point. It didn't really matter what piece of research I read. The number one driving factor for people leaving over and over again in the millennial generation is I don't think I was given an opportunity to grow. I was promised that I would get a promotion in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And we've seen this a lot in the big banks, the JP Morgans and the Morgan Stanleys and the Goldman Sachs. They have really struggled to keep analysts beyond 2 years into associates because they've taken that experience and they've gone and worked for a product development company in Silicon Valley where they've seen a direct impact of their work. So you've got to help them grow today, not tomorrow. So I've got a couple of examples to help make that reality. Zappos, I don't know if you can see the logo. They sell shoes. But underneath their logo, it says powered by service. And what they do is they go and find people who have the values of wanting to deliver excellent customer service, and then they instill that behavior. They have an award at the end of every month in the Zappos offices for the longest customer service call. They have an award for the customer service representatives who knows most customers by their first name. They really instill those values in their people, and they believe the shoe sales will follow. Deloitte, Big Four consultancy, real problem retaining people after a couple of years. They want to go work for startups like my company. So what did they do? They created a £25 million fund where they said, if you're an employee and you've got a good idea, you can come and pitch it to us. And if we like it, or we think it's a good business idea, we will let you essentially have a little startup incubator for 3, 6, or 9 months inside Deloitte. And we are giving you that environment to try and get you to stay here and understand that we are going to help you innovate too. And then the last one is make it real. You have to make it real. Does anyone know who this man is? I'm really hoping the answer is no, because you're going to ruin my next 4 slides. This man is Paul Burchett. Paul Burchett invented Gmail. And he did so when he was 24 years old. And he did so as part of Google's on the side of their desk policy. So I don't know if you know that Google let you work 1 day a week on your own personal projects. And what was really amazing here is that he did it, and he turned Google from one of their biggest products, turning them from a web-based search company to a web-based application company. And what Google understood is that they gave the behavior the 20% work week, and they understood that good experience, or that good kind of ideas do not come with experience. And what experience does in the room is help turn those good ideas into good business reality. And they were not judgmental against him because he was 24 years old. So there's just going to share with you a little anecdote about my past. I was one of the founding members who worked for a company called Prizio. And it was a startup, and the founders had all dropped out of Oxford University. And you can imagine their parents were like thrilled by this. They were between 19 and 21 years old. And we thought we had this good idea. And we started here, and we went to all the VC funds, and we pitched, and we said, we think we've got this really good idea. And they said, yeah, we think you've got a good idea too. Go and get some experience on your management team. Go and get some gray hair. Go and get some people who have run some businesses. Go and get some people who know what they're doing. And we kind of went, it's our idea. We think that's kind of bullshit. So we went to Silicon Valley, where the mindset was completely different. So just so you know that in Silicon Valley, about 25% of the founders are between the age of 20 and 24. But when you look at billion-dollar valued companies, that age bracket is the highest age bracket. And in contrast to that, the average age of an incoming S&P 500 CEO is 52.9 years old. So we went to Silicon Valley, and we went through this incubator called Y Combinator, which is very famous and has kicked out companies like Uber and Dropbox and Airbnb. And on the back of demo day for this company, we raised $2.2 million. We then went and set up in LA, and we grew the company for 18 months, went through a pivot like all good startups do, changed the name. And 2 years later, we sold that company for I had left by this time, unfortunately, for $100 million. And we made one of the biggest returns for our VC investors in that year. And we said, would we have done that had we gone and got all of this gray hair? Would we have gone and done that if we got all of this experience and all these people who, to the earlier point, had told us not to take risks? I don't think that we would have. And you have to understand that good ideas can come from absolutely anywhere. I'm so thrilled that I now have these innovation archetypes to take back to my company and tell them all about. So I asked you this question earlier on. And why did I ask you this? Because change has to be a collaboration. It has to be a two-way street. You have to trust the junior members of your team to help you get to solutions that really are going to mean that the way you do business tomorrow is different. And if you're one of the younger people in this room who has a good idea, you have to let the experience guide you to help making those ideas into reality. And actually, the only way to make a lot of lasting change is to put those two things together. And I'm not saying that good ideas can't come from 50-year-olds, and I'm not saying that experience can't come from 20-year-olds, but it tends to be that the older you get in your career, the more times you've just done these things. So you have to kind of work together in order to change the mindset overall. Thank you.
Lucy, come to the front of the stage. Thank you so much. You advise a lot of people like us, corporates, your clients. What are the things that you see them struggle with when it comes to changing mindsets?
Yeah, so a lot of my clients are actually like FTSE 100 companies, everybody from sort of Thames Water, who's about to be deregulated and has never had to kind of acquire a customer before, right through to sort of Disney film studios, who you would think know exactly how to acquire a customer. And the problems that they have are exactly the same. And that is that in big corporations like Fidelity, you believe that change has to be something that happens in a big bang type environment tomorrow. We're going to go and hire a big four consultancy. We'll spend $100 million. We'll put in agile PMO processing. And actually, we'll have to make it work because we've spent all the money. And then we look at the ROI and we go, cool, we've had a lot of consultants for a really long time and a new logo, right? And what is different about what we do and a lot of what these smaller companies do, and what a lot of the big tech companies in Silicon Valley do, is they test and they pilot and they iterate in a live environment. So the way we work is we go, we don't want your $100 million, much to my boss's dismay. We go, we'll take 1,000 of your customers and we'll take a few £100,000 and we'll take the prototype of the product or the service proposition that you want to potentially launch and we'll test it with these guys. We'll go and talk to them. We'll put it in beta. We'll let them use the product. And then we'll have some actually real-world insight into whether this is a viable business decision. And we'll build your models, and we'll get you the ROI and the IRR returns and everything as well. But we will actually put this in an environment that makes it real. And it's about being adaptive, and it's about understanding that this is something that big companies can do as well. And if you give the opportunity to that change, it actually helps you go and do the rest of business as usual because you're not disrupting everything so badly that if the test is a failure, you've got a real problem with your shareholders. It means that you've learned something and you can iterate that change in that product in a much better way. So my advice would be, it's not something that just one company deals with. It's a problem that all big companies deal with. But actually, if you're bold, there's a really easy solution to help you kind of, in this real-world learning environment, get the change that you want.
So it's definitely something where we're in good company.
Yes.
You would say. Well, look, everyone, busting a few myths for us. Lucy Cooper.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.